Another day, another missile launch by North Korea. Its fifth in 10 days. Today, North Korea fired a ballistic missile over Japan in what is a major escalation in this region and what many believe an attempt to grab the attention of Japan and the United States. The missile traveled a distance of 4,500 kilometers. Its range was the longest traveled by a North Korean test missile. Now, just to put that in perspective, if it took a different route, it could hit the U.S. island of Guam. However, it traveled over Japan, falling into the Pacific Ocean. Now, here's a look at some of the long-range missiles that Pyongyang already has. The first one is Nodon, with a range of 1,500 kilometers. The mid-range ones, including the Mosudan, with 4,000 kilometers as the range. Now to the one that Pyongyang likely fired over Japan. It is the Hwasong 12 with a range of 4,500 kilometers. But that's not all. As you can see, there is also the Hwasong 14 with a range of 10,400 kilometers, and also Hwasong 17 with a range of over 15,000 kilometers. The Hwasong 17 is known as North Korea's monster missile. In fact, it is believed to be the largest mobile intercontinental ballistic missile. Now, this means that it is capable of reaching the U.S. The Hwasong 17 is designed to carry multiple warheads, and it can potentially deliver a nuclear warhead anywhere in the United States. The last time Pyongyang fired a missile over Japan was in 2017. So clearly, there was frenzy this time. It activated its missile alert system, issuing what was a rare warning for the people to take shelter.
The fact that the ballistic missile this time had an altitude of 1,000 kilometers and flew about 4,600 kilometers means that it likely has the capability of at least an intermediate-range ballistic missile. In the past, North Korea has launched the IRBM 4 times, and we believe it's the same type.
The missile has been used 2 times before, in 2017 and both the times when Pyongyang fired missiles over Japan. Usually, North Korea's missile tests are conducted on a lofted flight path, which means that they reach a high altitude. This is to avoid any flights over Pyongyang's neighbors. But flying a missile over such a long distance allows North Korea to test it, especially under realistic conditions. And this one flew right over Japan as citizens received text alerts to evacuate buildings.
I feel scared. If their technology is improved, it means that they're working on this on a daily basis. I'm concerned that they could make a powerful missile someday.
It would have been a huge problem if it landed in Aomori or any part of our land. I feel like North Korea is getting desperate and could do whatever.
The South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol called the launch a provocation, one that violated United Nations regulations. He also vowed a stern response. Washington also called it a reckless and dangerous launch. Later on Tuesday, South Korean and U.S. fighter jets carried out a precision bombing drill in response to the earlier ballistic missile launched by North Korea. North Korea's latest move sends out a clear message to the United States. Now, this comes after Seoul, Tokyo and Washington have been ramping up joint military drills, especially to counter Pyongyang's growing threats in the region. The 3 nations took part in the first trilateral anti-submarine drills in 5 years, something that has clearly irked North Korea. Others believe that North Korea is gearing up for a nuclear test soon. Earlier this month, Pyongyang passed a new law, remember. It declared itself as a nuclear weapons state. And Kim Jong-un had also ruled out any possibility of denuclearization talks. From 2006 to 2017, Pyongyang has conducted 6 nuclear tests. It calls these tests necessary, especially to bolster its defenses. And with me on the broadcast this minute is Professor James D.J. Brown. He is an international affairs expert and is joining us from Tokyo. Thanks very much for being here. What, according to you, is the messaging that North Korea is sending out at this point, especially right after it passed that law and Kim Jong-un also ruled out the possibility of denuclearization talks?
Well, I think there are two things here. First of all, we shouldn't set aside the technical side of things. Part of the purpose of this test is actually to test the capabilities and to improve the capabilities of North Korea's missile technology. But you're right, another part of it is definitely political, it's international signaling. And the main element that is being signaled here is the North Korean regime's dissatisfaction with the status quo. We had a few years ago a South Korean president, President Moon, who was in favor of a softer approach. We had a US president in Trump who was willing to engage. We now have neither of those factors in place. And so I think North Korea really is demonstrating that it is unhappy with the approach of both South Korea and the United States. It wants more intention. It wants more engagement.
It wants more engagement, but do you see those denuclearization talks happening at all, given the kind of statements and the kind of moves on part of North Korea? Where do you see the denuclearization process headed, if at all?
Well, we have to look at the political arrangements in South Korea and the United States. And both of those leaders, President Yoon now and obviously President Biden, both of them have taken a very different approach to North Korea. They've deliberately set out an approach which avoids engagement with the North, believing that their predecessors had tried engagement and had received nothing in return. So I think that there's very little chance that either the Biden administration or the administration of President Yoon are willing to go down that path and repeat what they see as the mistakes of the Trump and Moon administrations.
Anything regarding the flight path of this particular test that stood out for you as compared to the earlier ones, which have usually been a lofted flight path as compared to this one?
Yeah, well, the key factor, of course, is that it went over Japanese territory. I mean, that's not unprecedented. That happened also in 2017. But that's a huge difference from the lofted trajectories. I mean, living here in Japan, quite frequently you receive the news reports about North Korea firing missiles into the Sea of Japan. And frankly, people have become used to it. There's not really much of a response. But this morning around breakfast time, getting the alert that a missile was actually flying over Japanese territory, for the Japanese public, that's a completely different sensation. It's obviously much more worrying.